We're going to jump in, and I'm going to start with Santa Clara. And this team, I think there's a number of storylines to kind of point to. Obviously, I mentioned one. This team has the potential to reach the NCAA tournament for the first time since 1996. On paper, this might be the best team Santa Clara has had since then. Honestly, might even be a better team than some of those 90 squads. Yes, and that includes a Steve Nash team. Plural, Steve Nash teams. There's also part of that is looking at the growth of Adama Alpha Ball and his return to Santa Clara, what that means, what that's going to look like, and how much more he has to go as far as development, because he's an NBA level talent and he went to the combine, did all those things. What's going to look like going into this year? The return of Carlos Stewart. I think that's another big one. This was a guy who was a first teamer just a couple seasons ago in the WCC, went to LSU, back to his home state of Louisiana for one season, and has returned to the Broncos. What does that look like? And then are there some breakout stars that we're not thinking about on the Santa Clara squad that, while we have some established stars, established starters, whatnot, is there someone in the wings who could be making that next step? All right. First off, with that NBA potential, maybe this best team. I look at it this way, and I agree with a lot of the hype. The continuity here is key. And this team returns more established pieces than almost anyone in the conference, short of Gonzaga. And this is kind of step one of making that next step the following season. This was a team that went 20-13 a year ago. They were 10-6 in the WCC, fourth in the league. But they return 72% of their points. They return 64% of their minutes. They return 4 regular starters and 3 others who've made starts throughout the course of the year. 12 guys are coming back from the squad overall. Know the list of the names of the guys like Adama Ball, Christoph Tilley, Johnny O'Neal, Bretton Napper, Tyree Bryan, Christian Hammond, Jake Ensminger. This, you can continue going on and on. Like, this team is legit 10 players deep. That is going to, I think, make actual contributions like toward winning for this squad this season. And their schedule is also a big part of why I think that this has the potential. Now, last year, they had some big wins. They beat Gonzaga for the first time in a long time. They beat Washington State. They beat Oregon. They showed they were capable of beating NCAA tournament quality teams. But what they did not take care of was beating the teams that they should have. They had a few hiccups there throughout the course of the non-conference, and then a couple in conference. The loss at Cal, the loss at San Jose State, loss at home to Yale, losses to San Diego and Portland. Those are games that a team who is an NCAA tournament team or capable of being an NCAA tournament team doesn't lose that many of those games. And I think that's the challenge with this squad is that you have high potential, but they have slipped and not been as focused and has been clean as maybe they should have been. Turnovers were a little bit of a problem in those games that they lost. And so taking care of the basketball, I think, is a big key in those games where maybe it got away from them. And one more time, the Santa Clara team is going to have an opportunity in their non-conference to get a lot of good wins. In that non-conference, they're starting off with St. Louis, and that St. Louis team is going to be good. A lot of the pieces, the coaching staff, some of the players are that Indiana State team from a year ago that honestly should have been in the NCAA tournament. They have Arizona State on the schedule. They're going to be at Nevada. They have Stanford. They're going to be down in Palm Desert for the Acrisure Invitational. They have TCU in the opener for that. Then they'll play Washington or Colorado State. Then Then they also have a big one, and it's already been on the radar for a lot of people, is the game at McNeese. That McNeese team is going to be very good again, and that is going to be another great opportunity, probably quite possibly a Q1 opportunity for Santa Clara on the road to get that game. So the chances are there. The opportunities are there, but it's, can you avoid the games that you shouldn't lose? Can you win all the games that you're supposed to win? Can you, again, I look at the rest of that. You have a game against North Dakota State. There's UC Riverside, Fresno State. Again, even in conference, thinking about games against Pacific or San Diego or Portland or Pepperdine. These are games that you have to win if you're going to build that NCAA tournament resume. You can't have at least more than one of those games. We know that you can have one hiccup. You cannot have multiple if your margin for error is going to be so small, which probably Santa Clara's will be. Because the challenge going even in the WCC play is, can you beat Gonzaga again? This Gonzaga team looks better than a year ago. Can you beat St. Mary's, which has been a constant challenge for this Santa Clara squad? Can you take care of the newcomers? Washington State is going to be in this, and yes, it's a different Washington State team than what we saw a year ago. I mean, definitely not a better Washington State team than we saw a year ago that went to the tournament. But this is going to be a team you have to handle your business against, or at least try. I don't think you have to take two out from Washington State, but you have to split that, I feel, at least against the Cougars going into that series. But Santa Clara, minimizing the number of times that you lose games you shouldn't lose, that you're more talented than, is going to be a critical part for the course of the season. Now, we talk about individuals who are going to be helping that cause. Carlos Stewart was one of my favorite players a couple seasons ago when he was at Santa Clara. This is a guy who could dominate a game. He scored that last season with the Broncos, was averaging 15 points a game. He shot 40% from three. He was a WCC first teamer. He was in the backcourt with Brandon Pajemski. And that was maybe the best backcourt in the WCC at the time, between the two of them. Obviously, yes, he went to LSU. He spent the 1 year there. He only played in 13 games before he had a knee injury that ended his season. But this is someone who is capable of dominating in this league, is capable of rising to another level. Now it's, can he, after the knee injury, after spending time at LSU, can he not necessarily turn the clock back, but can he look like the player that he did a couple seasons ago? What version of him will we see? Because the one thing that the Santa Clara team also kind of needed and kind of needs is, who's going to be the playmaker? This is someone who is is more going to be not necessarily an ISO player, but Carlos Stewart is someone who you can give the ball to and he will go get a bucket for you, which is going to be incredibly valuable. I think the number of guys that you can have that can get their own bucket is incredibly helpful in this league. I talked about it last year with Adama Ball. It's he was one of the only guys I felt that could do that in the WCC. And when he was on, we saw how much better Santa Clara was when he was going like he can. And I think the same will go for Carlos Stewart in the same way. If he gets going, if he has one of those 20, 25-point games, he can carry a Santa Clara squad. This is a better Santa Clara team than the one he left a couple seasons ago. This is a deeper Santa Clara team than the one he left a couple seasons ago. And coming back, being in a comfort zone of where he had spent his first two college seasons, I think is going to be beneficial to him. Also, I think it's a transfer in, but it's not someone who needs to relearn the system. He already knows the system. He's kind of going to fall right back into where he was when he was last at Santa Clara. So the learning curve for him is not going to be that that hard. I think what the challenge for him is going to be is learning his new teammates and learning where they are going to be. But the system is going to be largely the same. The role he's likely to play is going to be the same. So this is someone I expect to maybe not at 15 points per game, because I think they're going to be a little bit more balanced going into this year. But this is someone who can take over games. I'm really excited to see Carlos Stewart back. Not going to be as excited to see him play St. Mary's, because I think he's going to be a terror against them. But Carlos Stewart returning was a big, big boost. I kind of almost confused his return with Carlos Marshall coming back, who I knew was out of eligibility, and I saw it's like Carlos Stewart has returned. I'm like, wait, isn't a Carlos out of eligibility? And then it took me a couple minutes to realize, oh, we were talking about Carlos Stewart returning from LSU, which again is its own kind of interesting wrinkle that you had someone who was previously at the school return in this way. But Carlos Stewart is a huge lift for what Santa Clara I think is capable of doing this year, and watching him in the early part of the non-conference is going to be fascinating to see how quickly he readjusts to the squad. Mentioned a little earlier, Adama Alphaball. He is one of the more dynamic players in the WCC. 6'7" guard. He can play make. He can take over a game offensively. There were a couple moments last year that just kind of like stuck out of my head. Of like the game against Oregon was a huge one. I think that was down in Nice, Florida. He had a great tournament. He had a great game against Oregon. The game against Washington State was another one that just stuck out of my mind. And this is one, and even though this was in a loss, the second half at St. Mary's, a Ball took over that game in the second half, and nearly, like, Santa Clara was down, I think, like 20, 22 points in that one. And he threw them on his back and nearly brought them all the way back in that game, that was one of the more impressive halves I've seen from him, and then really anyone in the WCC over the past year. He did get banged up during WCC play, which did hamper him a little bit there, which is how I think Santa Clara got a little bit out of whack, how San Diego and Portland losses kind of happened. But this is someone who, if you need a bucket, he can get it. He averaged 14 a game last year, which was a team high. He averaged 3.1 assists last year. In addition to what they're going to do as a team, what's going to be fascinating to see with Ball is what adjustments he is going to make to take that next step. He had declared for the NBA draft, but he elected to return. What advice was he given? What is there to add to his game that is going to make him a better option for NBA squads? I think the consistency is going to be a huge component of that. I think he has playmaking ability. If he can almost get, don't need to quite get to this level, but if he could almost get to like Jalen Williams level playmaking ability with all the rest of the skill set he has, I think that's going to be incredibly valuable to his overall game, his balanced game, because that was one of the things I think that would obviously differentiated Jalen Williams from a lot of other prospects, was the fact that not only could he score, he could play make for others. He was a good ball handler. He was able to find guys on the drive, on the wings. Like, he was a good passer. And that's going to be, I think, one of the other things to be able to not add on, but just improve upon Ball's game going into this season. And obviously we know the recent draft success of Santa Clara with Brandon Pajemski, with Jalen Williams, that I don't think it's out of the realm that we do see Adama Ball possibly be that next guy. I don't think it's impossible that we see some of the other Santa Clara guys get a better look because of recent Santa Clara success at that level. And on the player development front, one of the guys that I'm not NBA level, maybe not yet, but we'll see it with his development, that I'm keeping an eye on is going to be Jake Ensminger. There was so much talent on this squad, and Jake Ensminger just stood out so much in year one. Did a lot of the dirty work. He looked like he belonged almost right away. One of the things he did really well was rebound. He had the 7 most rebounds as a freshman in Santa Clara history. He posted a couple of different double-doubles. That first one, 10 points, 11 rebounds at USF. He then had another one, 17 and 10 against Pacific. He is a player that I really like watching because he doesn't necessarily need the ball to make an impact on this squad. And these are the sorts of players that Santa Clara needs to kind of balance the squad out. They don't need him to score a ton, but he's capable of doing it. They don't necessarily need him to rebound a ton, but he's obviously capable of doing it. And you could just see how much more confidence they had in him as the season went along as a freshman, that he was in situations late in games. He was there. He was one of the go-to guys if you needed him. Jake Ensminger is someone I'm going to keep a really close eye on because he is, I think, one of the guys who might be a make or break guy when it comes to NCAA tournament aspirations. He's the type of guy that if everything goes well, he's going to be the unsung hero. He's going to be one that you're going to look back and be like, if we don't have him, this may not work at all. And with that development, like, that's someone we'll see it again. There's not a whole lot of spots in this rotation, so it's going to be tough to fight for minutes. But I expect him to be one of those guys who's going to get good number of minutes. I would say 20 to 25 is what Jake Ensminger is going to be at this coming season. May not necessarily start all the time, but he's going to get, I think, a good number of looks there. Again, you still have Christoph Tilley, you still have Johnny O'Neal, who are filling kind of like those big man spots. But Ensminger is going to be in the mix. He's not going to be lost in the shuffle. He's going to figure out a way to be valuable and get minutes throughout the course of the season. Another one for me that I'm keeping an eye on, another addition, is Elijah Mahai. This 6'7" forward, good athleticism. He has a good touch on his shot. Transfer from West Valley College in California. This was a guy who was named California Player of the Year. He won MVP honors in the JC State Tournament. Averaged 17 points a game, 6 rebounds. But the one thing, as I was kind of looking through the resume, looking through some video that I could find, is how active he is defensively. And that's another component that I think that Santa Clara they have to be good on that side of the basketball. One of the things Santa Clara has been very good at over the last few years has been their offense. Their offense has not been an issue. They've been one of the more efficient teams. They've been one of the more fun teams to watch on the offensive end. But it's their defense that has to come along with it. They had an adjusted defensive rating last year via KenPom of 134. And that has to be better. Well, they were ranked 134. And that is not going to cut it if they hope to get to the NCAA tournament. You even think about the USF team a couple seasons ago that did get in. They were in the 20s defensively. They were a good defensive team. St. Mary's, good defensive team. Gonzaga, good defensive team. You have to do the work on the defensive end, not just on the offensive end. And this is someone who, while he's incredibly skilled on the offensive end, and I think is going to be a great piece off the bench, you need someone who's going to be able to be that dog in a way on the defensive end. And this is someone who has the capability of doing that. As he won defensive honors as in his first year in the league at the JC level. So between Adama Walton, again, like defensively, we talk about what guys need to do. Tyree Bryan is another one, I think, that I really liked coming into the year. He tapered off a little bit, but that's another guy who I think has the capability of being a very valuable piece in that rotation of what they're going to look like. And they defensively is, I think, where Santa Clara has to have that focus. And when you think about them moving forward, that's going to be one of the key pieces. And they balance this all again. Like talking about Mahai, talking about Ensminger. They have a lot of really good role players. Brendan Napper, Johnny O'Neill, Cam Tong, Christian Hammond. Like there's a lot of guys who are going to give you valuable minutes throughout the course of the season. And this Santa Clara squad is going to I think look really exciting at times, but I think there's still going to be some frustrations at times because they do sometimes struggle on the defensive end. But size won't be one of their problems. They have 9 players that are 6'7" or taller on this squad. And we talked last year, they were one of the bigger teams in all of college basketball with a couple of 7-footers there in the middle. And that's not going to be much different this year. You're going to have some big, big guys, which you need when you look in this league, when you look at Gonzaga, you look at St. Mary's, you look at Washington State and what they've been able to bring in. You look at Oregon State and what they've been able to bring in. You better bring some size. USF, you look at LMU and what they've been able to add. You're going to need some size, and Santa Clara has plenty of it. So overall, thinking about this Santa Clara squad, I like the pieces that they have. I think that the hype is warranted about this squad. Any number of John Rothstein has talked about them being a little bit of a sleeper. We've had others point out that this team is going to be, you need to look out for them throughout the course of the season. And I agree. The talent is here. They've had recent success. They bring much of a roster back from last year, which is an important thing. And yes, it's a 20-win team that was 109 in KenPom, 105 in the net. But you expect incremental changes for returning players as they grow familiar with the system, as they grow as players, as they develop. How much of a change does that mean we'll see from that 105, 109 number? Obviously, we know if they want a chance at the NCAA tournament, thinking as an at-large, you've got to be in the 30s. You've got to be at the very least, you've got to be in the 40s to be a serious consideration. So can they make a 60 point jump, 60 spot jump? Talent is there. I think the recent success is helpful. They have the schedule that's going to help them eliminate the bad losses. That's, to me, one of the keys. I mean, maybe it's simpler, I'm simplifying it way too much on the doing that. It's take care of the basketball, play better defense, because these are things that this Santa Clara team struggled with at times, and is kind of the make or break with what you're going to see go in this league going forward. Like the top teams play defense. Guess what? You're going to have to do that well and extremely well if you're going to be in that NCAA tournament conversation. This was a squad that beat Gonzaga a year ago, a squad that beat Oregon a year ago, a squad that beat Washington State, beat Stanford. If you can take care of the teams you're supposed to beat, and then do what you did a year ago, they're capable of beating these teams, capable of beating a lot of these squads. Again, they have so many games in this non-conference that are going to help a resume. St. Louis, Arizona State, Nevada, Stanford, TCU, McNeese, either Washington or Colorado State. Either one of them would help. Bradley, I don't want to underestimate how important the Bradley game is as well. That's 8 games that are going to be good opportunities to build a resume. And looking at that, if you can get 4 or 5 of them to be wins, I think you're putting yourselves in a very good situation for what March is going to look like, what that resume looks like when we get to Selection Sunday. So overall, Santa Clara, to me, their ceiling is I think they're the third best team in the WCC at their ceiling. I think they're an NCAA tournament team at their ceiling. I think that is 1 and 2. I think Santa Clara can get back to the tournament with this team. Their floor, this has been a very consistent team. Now, I do think that the floor in the conference this year is maybe 5th or 6th. And maybe you're looking at 17, 18 wins is the bottom of what I think that this team would do. That's assuming everyone's healthy. And Santa Clara going into the year is going to have a lot of expectations. I think more than maybe they've had in a long, long time. And I know there's trepidation about how they fare against St. Mary's, how they fare against Gonzaga. And rightly so, because those two have really had a stranglehold on the conference, obviously, for the last 20 plus years. But if Santa Clara can get one from either one of those teams, as they did a year ago, and then take care of the business they should. I mean, how much if I don't have a loss to San Diego, don't have a loss to Portland, how much further up that list am I? That might even be good enough for like 10, 15 spots at least without those 2 losses. Clean up those losses. Do what you did a year ago. Add another key win or 2. They're going to be in the mix. They're going to be in the hunt. The very least, I think they would get back to the NIT. And if they are sitting at 24 wins come Selection Sunday, I think there's a very good chance we could hear their name called and them go to their first NCAA tournament since 1996.